Thunderstash. What are we talking about again? What'd you choose?
All right, so we're talking about Paper Mario, the 1,000-Year Door. 30 frames per second. The internet is in an absolute uproar. As soon as that information came out, I feel like everyone kind of lost their shit. I saw it on Twitter. I was like, oh my God, like people are very, very passionate. And that's a whole nother debate, right? About 30 frames and 60 frames. We've all seen it. People get really upset about that kind of stuff. And some people won't even play games that are 30 frames. I heard the debate with Tears of the Kingdom, how upset people were that was 30 frames. Now, look, I played 1,000-Year Door the day it came out. I still have my original copy on GameCube. It's a masterpiece, absolute masterpiece. I love the game. I don't care how it comes to me, whether it be 30 or 60, because it's going to be locked in at 30. It's not going to dip below 30. So at least it's a constant 30. But look, I don't care which way it comes to me. I am thankful that we are getting the 1,000-Year Door on Switch. I would have never have guessed that we'd get that game. I feel the same way about the fact that we got Super Mario RPG last year. That is a game that I rented the day it came out at Blockbuster and absolutely love Mario RPG. And I could not believe that Nintendo and Square teamed up to bring it to the Nintendo Switch. Like, that was a dream come true. And then to follow it up the next year with 1,000-Year Door, I love it. Absolutely love it. So to me, it doesn't really matter in Super Mario or in Paper Mario, the 1,000-Year Door, because this is, I know you have the action commands and you got to press the button at a certain time. And yeah, would it work maybe better at 60 frames per second? Probably, but it's Nintendo. They'll figure it out. I'm sure it's going to work fine at 30 frames.
The other Paper Mario games are at 30 frames, and they have the exact same kind of mechanics.
Yeah, I saw you say that on Twitter earlier today. I was like, yeah.
They also have a Battle Master that helps you kind of adjust to the mechanics as well. Like, so I
it's just not a big deal to me. I'm just thankful. Like, I'm thankful we're getting it. That's it. And go ahead.
No, I'm just, you're good. There is something you said that just kind of peeves me a little. Nothing you said, Steve. Just
triggered. You triggered?
Yeah, just a little. Because the fact that this conversation is happening now annoys me just a bit, because we've known the game's been 30 FPS since they showed the first trailer.
Technically, it wasn't confirmed because it was only footage and not hands-on.
Yeah,
I know all the trailers and all the footage was 1080p, 30 FPS. I know.
It's just, listen, you're right. We didn't know for 100%.
But now we know because the preview
it was pretty darn likely that it was going to stay at 30.
I would say yes.
Yeah. Sometimes Nintendo games do see a visual improvement before launch, but this is a remake.
We've also seen Nintendo put around 1080p, 60 FPS trailers, and then the games only ever hit 720p and 30 FPS. So.
Yeah, but you can check the actual trailer and go frame by frame.
You can actually figure it out.
You can count the frames. It's not hard.
But a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah. But then if you couldn't notice, then does it really matter? But that's a whole other thing, right? So here's another little interesting thing. Like, I see a lot of people complain about this, but do most people realize that most movies and TV shows are at 30 or even 24 frames per second?
Please don't make this argument. Please. Please do not make this argument.
It's already been made.
Wait,
no.
I don't think
you're not interacting with shows and movies.
Yeah,
there's no
interaction involved.
I 100% understand, right? Because it's about reaction time. I understand that, and because of the interaction, it's a little different. However, there are some people that literally say that they get queasy just by watching gameplay, which is the equivalent to watching a movie. And so that's just ridiculous to me, right? But yes, from a gameplay perspective, that brings in the conversation on action commands, which I then respond by saying, okay, well, what about the other Paper Mario games that are at 30 and no one complains about those? Well, actually, people do complain about those.
Yeah,
but not because of the frame rate or because of the action commands, but because of everything else.
I will say that just to kind of play the other side of the coin just for a moment, because by the way, I don't give a shit. I think 30 FPS is totally fine. But the other games never had the expectation of 60 FPS versus this one that was originally 60 FPS. And this is considered the most beloved game in the entire franchise. And a lot of the people coming back to play this particular version, this particular one, aren't playing the other Paper Marios because they think the other Paper Marios suck. So that's why they're upset, because they don't care about the other ones did because they don't like the other ones.
I think that's fair, right? Like from the perspective of, hey, the original was 60, this is 30, what the flip? But this is also not the same game. It's a visual remake, right? And there are quality of life updates. Nintendo has said there's more. We don't know what that more is. Might just be more quality of life updates. There could be something else. We don't know the full package yet. So that's another thing. Like, until we know the full package, we probably shouldn't fully judge the game. But
it's 60 FPS on Switch too.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is silly, and I understand there's an argument to be made for 60 frames when it comes to action games or first-person shooters, games like Souls, where like every frame counts. But this is a turn-based RPG where you take turns attacking, and yes, there are action commands, but you know, I challenge most people to say that the action commands in Paper Mario require like sharp instinct and quick reflexes, you know what I mean? And like Thunder Stash, I absolutely love Thousand Year Door. It's actually in like probably in my top 20-25 games of all time. That game's super special to me.
Did Mario RPG run at 60?
It did. It dipped sometimes below 60 on Switch. I looked it up earlier.
Yeah. And it runs mostly at 60 with a few dips that you can notice in the very specific situations, but it wasn't like it was dipping down to like 30 FPS.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like 5 to 10 frames tops dipping.
I guess what would have been cool is if they included the original version of the game running at 60. That way you can make both sides happy.
Do we know who the main developer of this one is?
We don't know yet, to my knowledge. Landon, do we know?
I don't think we do, but I would assume it's still intelligent. But
we do know it's a remake, though.
Yeah,
I do know that.
I don't know. I just think it's silly. The game's gorgeous. It's turn-based. I don't understand what you need the 60 frames. It's literally one of the prettiest.
I mean, there's other controversy with this game too. Like they changed the text.
But Landon, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. Like Prime was saying, like I see people complaining about, like you just said, the text. I see people complaining that Rogue Port looks too shiny. I'm like, I don't understand. They said the music is too good now. There's too much instrument. I'm like,
by the way, you can switch.
You can change the music. Yeah.
That's a feature in this game. If you don't like the new music, you ain't gonna listen to it. That part I think is a little BS. You don't like the new music. They did make that optional.
Right. So. And I mean, it's the same thing too with the frame rate. I'm completely on the same page with Thunderstash. Where like, it is a blessing that this game is coming out in 2024. Like, as a huge Paper Mario fan, I'm like, for all the Paper Mario fans out there, this is a dream. Like,
we've been asking for it every Paper Mario announcement. When's Thousand Year Door coming? When's that? Like every announcement, and now it's here, and everyone's pissed. It's so stupid.
Anyways, stupid. Yeah, and it makes us look stupid. And like you said, and it's just like, it's a very slow paced, turn-based RPG where you're not moving more than like 2 miles an hour, exploring things slowly, and then battle systems. The only thing you got is like a super guard, which does have some strict timing. I think it's like 3 frames, but I mean, even that, most people are not going to notice it. Most people are not going to. The fact that people are saying I'm not buying, I've seen people say I'm not buying this game until there's a patch or until Switch 2 where maybe it's 60 frames. I'm like, we don't deserve Nintendo sometimes, man.
Right?
People are just
and even if you miss the timing, you're not gonna die.
Yeah,
like you're not gonna die in the game, right? Like
I know.
If you die in the game, you got to work on your gaming skills. But this it's not a hard game.
Get good.
It's just not a hard game. We know.
Stop touching grass. Get good.
It makes me think of that Iwata quote that was like semi-controversial when he said gamers are insatiable. You guys remember that?
He was predicting the future.
Got really upset. But this is exactly that. You guys want Paper Mario? Here you go. It's more gorgeous than it's ever been. Redoing the music, new features, new systems.
I want
some
Paper
people would
Mario,
prefer
Paper Mario.
I know.
It's interesting, right? Because you look at something like Skyward Sword HD, right? That game does not have any sort of visual overhaul beyond an upscale. right? But it's at 60 frames per second. So, and that people were complaining about that. They were like, "Oh, there's not enough new here," right? Like they were just quality of life updates, 60 FPS upscale. 1,000-Year Door is a visual rebuild. It's made to look like a modern Paper Mario. We don't know about new content, but there's a bevy of quality of life updates that are pretty nice, that are more so than Skyward Sword, but it's not at 60. So it's kind of like, what do you pick your poison, right? Like, do you want 60? Well, I mean, then you look at something like Prime Remastered, which didn't sell as well as it probably should have, was cheaper, was a visual rebuild, essentially, even though it's technically a remaster, and it is at 60. But that's a whole other. That's just a technical marvel. That's the anomaly.
But, see, I also look at it though. Like, if Metro Prime Remaster can be 60, then why can't this game? Like, I want to actually know what the reasoning
Retro
is.
Studios are wizards. That's why.
That's fine. But this is also Nintendo lends some resources to whoever was working on this.
But it's a different visual style, right? So who is the developer that chimed in on this that got picked up?
Yeah, Abib Tanari. I have it up right now.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, do you want to share that, Andres? I'll put it on screen.
That'd be good to see.
Sure.
This was interesting to read, actually.
Yeah, it was cool.
I didn't read this, so that's why I'm
we think of visually impressive, and we just think maybe more ultra realistic graphics or something that looks more realistic. But they were explaining this, that the art style that you go for sometimes, the amount of shaders and everything you have to program in to get it to look that way is so complex. And I wonder if that's what happened here. It's just on the Switch, it's just not going to run at a solid 60. So do we delay the game and optimize everything for months and months, or do we put it out at 30? And that's probably what they ended up doing.
Yeah. Are you sharing it yet or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to read it off, or
can you zoom in a little bit? Just make it a little larger.
Yeah.
There we go.
Is that better? All right. So Abib Tanari, right? They are a game designer at Platinum Games. They worked on Bayonetta Origins and Star Fox Guard, among others, right? And so this is what they said. I can emphasize with the devs of Paper Mario: The 1,000-Year Door on Switch with the whole 30 FPS versus 60 FPS situation. We tried for a long time to get Cereza and the Lost Demon running at a stable 60 FPS. For those who don't know, that's Bayonetta Origins, which is a published Nintendo title. We were able to maintain 60 FPS inside the Tirana Nog stages, but it just wasn't possible to keep the same visual fidelity and hold 60 FPS in the forest. My choice is either to have an unlocked frame rate with frequent dips to 30 to 50 FPS, or cap it and hold a stable 30. The most difficult part of the game of game development is making choices about what to prioritize. Everything has a cost, both in terms of dev time to implement it and in terms of processing time when the game is running. Ultimately, you simply cannot have everything. This is Cereza and the Lost Demon. May not look visually complex, but there's actually a ton of post-processing going under the hood. The colors fading in like ink as you move throughout the world, the shading patterns on objects, the way the world curves to allow you to see further into the distance. All these visual effects have a processing cost. I felt the picture book look was integral to the overall experience, so it was not worth throwing it away to hit 60 FPS. I imagine the team making Paper Mario faced a similar dilemma. It would be one thing if this were an enhanced port of the original game, like Pikmin 1 and 2, but this is a full rebuild of the game. I'm sure they want to use modern techniques to really make the paper aesthetic shine, and these have a cost. All I can say for certain is the team made the choice they felt would lead to the best overall experience for players. I promise you, it was not a decision made lightly or out of laziness. I missed that on the original, so I'm looking forward to playing it on Switch.
And big shout out to Cereza and the Lost Demon. Super underrated, but actually a pretty rad game.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's a cool comparison too, because Cereza and Lost Demon, as he said, they were going for that kind of color book look, right? And Paper Mario's going for the paper look. And if you pay attention to the comparisons from the original to the new one, this is a fully rebuilt game. Everything's made out of paper now. Before, not everything was made out of paper. It's a completely different art style now. And there's a lot of really cool effects going into it, some of which may be more subtle than we realized. It could be very costly. So, it's sometimes we could look at Metro Prime Remastered and we could say, man, that game just looks amazing and it's 60 FPS. Why couldn't they also do that for 1,000-Year Door, which does look pretty darn good? but we don't know. We it's hard for us to quantify as just the fan like looking at footage saying, oh, like this game is more costly than the other, because there's a lot of underlying things and we don't know what cost versus another. Like perhaps like having like paper like water is like really stressing.
Sorry, I don't want to. I'm just like maybe Metro Prime Remastered isn't as impressive development.
You're just trying to throw some shade.
It's almost like it is a real remaster, not a remake, because it's not. It didn't take.
But I've never. I'm always. It's a remaster because it's based off how it was made. It was.
I know. We're not having that debate today.
Yeah,
we're not a different show. We had that debate.
Yeah, but. Prime Remaster is also
I've got to get away from it. I know I pushed your buttons. Here, you said something. I'm like, oh, wait a second.
Don't make me start quoting developers.
Oh no,
I can get away from it. So for me, part of that Twitter post going through that, they made the comment of trying to hold 60, but sometimes it dropped to 50, 30. In games where frames matter. Once you would, to me, I would think I'd rather have a locked 30 than all of a sudden, you drop your frame at an inconvenient time and you miss your frames that you need to hit. That's to me, I'm more of a give me a steady frame rate versus choppy any day. But for this type of game, once you figure it would be better to actually have the steady frame rate, then all of a sudden you're going to jump on a Goomba and you drop 8 frames and all of a sudden you missed it.
I agree. And I think N64, Josh, you made a good point. And I think this is something we have to look at too. My guess is that they were probably pretty close to being able to do this, to pull off 60. But they probably couldn't. They probably ran into some of the same issues. And I really appreciate the look inside of development that that Twitter user brought up. I thought that was great. I read that. I was like, this is cool to see an inside look. So definitely appreciate something like that. But with the Switch too, I mean, that's a great selling point that you mentioned. It's going to run at 60 FPS on Switch too.
60. Try 120, baby.
For $10.
Well,
the upgrade path is there.
With the info that came out today, it might run even better than 60. But I just think we see games like that, and it makes me think that Switch 2 it'll run at 60. That's just a great selling point, and we're probably going to see a lot of titles, hopefully. If we look at those rumors that happened in the past about, what was it, Breath of the Wild running at 60 frames per second behind closed doors, that's a launch game, and apparently they had it running at 60 frames. So you got to wonder how many games we're going to get that are going to be upgraded like that on Switch 2, which would obviously be a huge selling point that we've discussed previously on this podcast. So I look at it as that. I look at it in that way as well, that they might have said, we're really close, but do we want to have these dips, or do we want to just lock it at 30 and say, hey, for everyone who wants to play it at 60, buy Switch 2?
Yeah. I mean, the argument, obviously, like the whole Twitter thread that was read through, I just kept thinking the whole time, these developers want Switch 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're making these choices with these games that don't feel like they need to make these choices with, and it's because they are still being limited by technology that came out in 2015.
Yeah.
Something I want to point out, because you were asking about the developer. We don't know who the developer is, but
we don't know. We think it might be the same people who've been doing the Paper Mario stuff. We don't.
There's a good chance it could be outsourced.
Could be.
I mean, it's like a lot of games right now. Like, do we have a game that's come out this year that hasn't been outsourced?
No. Not. I mean, if you mean like by a Nintendo-owned studio, no.
Correct. Right. Like even and Princess Peach Showtime, which is a Nintendo. I'm talking about all the Nintendo published titles.
Yeah.
None of them have been made by an internal Nintendo studio, a studio that's owned by Nintendo. Nintendo partners, right? They're still Nintendo games, but they're not made by a core Nintendo team, right? And so I bring that up because in the case of Thousand Year Door, you were kind of talking about, Prime Remastered, like that's an impressive game, but it's also made by Retro Studios, which is technically a Nintendo studio, right? Like they may not have had as much resources as Retro to be able to pull off as much of a technical marvel.
Or as much time. How long were they sitting on Prime 1 Remastered? We were talking about it for years before it came out, right?
True.
Yep.
And also, what else has been Retro Studios doing all this time? I imagine just polishing that engine.
Well, I mean, technically working on Metroid Prime 4.
I mean, even before that, like
But yeah.
the tropical freeze to now
Well,
drought.
that's true.
technically, I'm sure there's a canceled project in there somewhere that
Sure,
There's got to
Either-
be.
Gotta be.
gotta
yeah.
be.
My perspective has simply been that there must be at least like some level of engine optimization that they've been doing, which is one of the reasons why Nintendo may have given them things over to Prime 4, and I think Prime Remastered is proof of that, or
Okay.
evidence. It's not nothing's proof until confirmed, but you know.
Anyone else want to chime on this? Is there like someone putting their flag in the mud?
I think Nintendo was just tired of not being in the conversation with Microsoft and Sony and all their games running at 30 FPS.
It
So.
wasn't a big deal. Like this Starfield used to be like, hey, it now finally runs kind of at 60 FPS on Xbox Series X.
So I see in the chat that Spin is saying
Kind of.
Intelligent Systems is making Thousand Year Door remake. Is that confirmed? Did we just do a Google search?
That's what I got
That-
off of my Google search too. But again,
That
it's just Google.
doesn't-
It also might have been confirmed by someone who did a preview, and we just didn't read it.
Yeah.
So.
But they also might not know.
Well, I'm saying they might know because there could have been some credits on the demo and stuff like that. We obviously don't know 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know 100%. I'm not saying it's not out there. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if it's intelligence. I mean, it would make sense that they'd be the ones that did it. But
I don't think. Well, according to Spin, it's on the Nintendo Store page. Let me double check that.
is it cool?
Maybe.
That'd be great if it actually is, because they do usually put it there eventually.
I mean, for the sake of the future of the franchise, I really hope it's intelligent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you hope they get inspired by this and it sells like it'd be great if this became. Oh man, wouldn't it be so bad if this just became the best-selling Paper Mario game of all time? Man, what a sad day that would be.
Mm-hmm.
Except that would be an amazing sign for the future of the franchise. If you
Right.
really like if you, for all your complaints,
Uh,
guys, if you want this to be the future of Paper Mario, you better show up and buy this game.
That's exactly my thought. Everyone who's
So-
complaining, I really hope they go buy the game because otherwise we won't get nice things like this anymore.
I'm still kind of debating. I'm screen sharing,
Mhm.
right?
Oh, sure.
I'm on the website.
I'd
Yep.
agree with you, Andres. I'm looking at that too, and it's
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it says game developed by Intelligent Systems, but
they're just copyrights.
right, wouldn't that just be like the original game in 2004?
Yeah, because the copyright says 2004.
That is
there.
2004.
Yeah.
That's a good
They-
point.
So that's
Yeah.
like the original accreditation.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
because they made the original Thousand Year Door, they make Paper Mario. So
Yeah.
I don't know if this is confirmation that this remake is also been done by them.
It could be, but
I
don't
mean,
think it's
again, it
definitive
could.
proof.
I just don't think it's confirmation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
and there's nothing else here. Google says Google will tell you the developers that, but it's confusing because the original was also made by that, and Google
And the
can't
accreditation on
differentiate.
the thing is obviously to the original development. So
Yeah.
again, I don't know if anything's official, or if the preview people knew, or if we're just all guessing. Because a lot of times, what we've learned with Nintendo's games is even when they're listed on the shop, we still typically don't know. Like we didn't even know Goodfield was the developer until like Princess Peach came out. So most people kind of figured they were probably the developers, but it wasn't officially listed on the eShop when you could pre-order it. So I think it's one of those that it will be interesting if it was outsourced to somebody else. It would also kind of suck a little bit because like you want, but I'll say this: I think the sales figures are the things that are going to really speak volumes about the future of Paper Mario. Like if this massively outdoes, God, what was the last one? Origami King. Yeah, if it massively outdoes that game. I mean,
I really hope so. I loved Origami King, but I would like to see a return to form. I know I let go of that by the time Origami King came around.
Guys,
But now that we're getting a remake of everyone's favorite turn-based Paper Mario game, or not everyone's favorite, but most people's favorite, I hope that people show up and buy this one and it sends a signal. Nintendo's going to do it to pave its own way. But I don't know. Origami King's great. The combat gets really monotonous after a while. I do like the boss fight, like the game board. That was pretty cool to me, discovering like the puzzles for the bosses. But the regular fights, I just found myself trying to avoid them.
Look, guys. This game sells 10 million. This is the kind of game you're going to keep getting. I'm just letting you know right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know how RPG sold? Super Mario RPG?
Really well.
Thank God.
It's sold well.
Really
we obviously don't know the most up-to-date stuff. We'll find that out May 7th.
Yeah, my birthday.
I think
I think it was
I
over
think they
3
said
mil.
it was. Yeah, I think they said it
Was it
exceeded
over 3 mil? 3.47?
expectations.
3.14.
Excellent.
3.
Since its launch.
So 3.14. We
I
haven't
don't know
had
As
when
of
the
December
update.
31st, right?
Yeah, we haven't had. Well, it
Let
should
me
be
look
as
into
of
it.
February's update, right? Yeah, which was
Yeah.
through December. Yeah.
In February.
Yep.
So
Good.
3.14.
So Nintendo hasn't updated since then, but 3 million for that game, incredible.
Very good.
This is a remake of a Super Nintendo game. That's amazing.
So like, if this game does 5, 6, 7, 8, I mean,
Even if it does 3, that's still
like,
good.
here's the thing. I think it has a chance to do well because this isn't like a dead franchise. Paper Mario has been consistently. There's a current Paper Mario fan base that has been playing these games this whole time. Like we said, we got Origami King on Switch, so it's bringing back a game that a lot of people today maybe never played. I keep saying that. It was 2001 when this game came out.
I'm on the Wikipedia for Intelligent Systems, the
A whole
actual
lifetime
company,
ago.
and it does show Paper Mario for 2024,
There you
along
go.
with
That's
all
also-
the other
that's
games
also
they did
Wikipedia.
100% do.
Is there a citation to Wikipedia?
Yeah, because
Um,
Because I can go update it right now and say it was made by Nintendo Prime in his basement.
right. It's not a source.
And
Yeah.
you should.
There's a
Nate.
reason that
Yeah.
colleges won't let you use it, even though it's a good place
here's
to
the
find
here's
it.
the other thing though, right? If it is outsourced, it's not really the end of the world because like I would assume that Intelligent Systems would still oversee the project to an extent anyways,
Yeah.
right? It wouldn't be like they wouldn't have any hand in it. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think they would just
I
hand it
agree.
off and there wouldn't be any level of supervision.
Sure.
So
Well, Thunderstash is checking that out.
it was last edited April 23rd.
it was edited. Okay.
That's it.
Well,
it was edited, but there's no citation for. Okay, yeah. So, I think there's a lot of assumptions it's intelligent system, which I'm totally cool if it is. I think that's the best guess. That's the best guess, anyways, that we can have.